Hi lovelies, so I've been thinking recently about how we view our lives, viewing our lives as a story, the grand adventure. It's a really fun way to view like your plans, your goals, and just generally living. Now, in all good adventure stories, there is the hero. First thing you need to check is, are you the hero of your own story? Are you the protagonist? You should be. And with all good stories, it's not just you in the mix. Other characters will come in and out of your life. Some are good through and through, some are the villains, bad through and through. But there are some people, a lot of people, that may come in that you just can't work out. Are they good? Are they evil? There's something going on there. Can you trust them? Can you not? There is confusion around some people. Even if you trust them, is there a gut rumbling that perhaps they might change sides on you at any time, throw you under the bus? Their intent feels shrouded. You just can't work them out. And it throws you into a state of confusion around them, feeling that you might be being manipulated, or perhaps not. Am I imagining things? We've all met people like that who trigger the red flag signal, but you can't quite work out if you're imagining things or not. It's a smoke and mirrors time, a time that puts you on edge, throws you in confusion, and sometimes gets you questioning yourself. These are the shapeshifters of everyday life. I think every hero meets shapeshifters in their story. The people that throw them into confusion, that will throw eggshells around your feet and demand that you walk on them. They're emotional state switchers, emotional shapeshifters that will put you on edge or get you questioning yourself. They are the people that are really okay throwing out some lies or omissions in their speech. They can all out gaslight you, to trick you, to confuse you. They can deny things that you know happened, keep you in a state of constantly chasing the truth or explaining yourself as their state and desires and their goalposts continually change to keep you running to keep up. They can make you feel like you've gone mad. I once said to my divorce lawyer that this man could tell me black was white and I would end up believing him. They are the people that are fine throwing you into that state. Shapeshifters turn your life into a mirage, into smoke and mirrors. They can leave you questioning your own reality. Their task is to derail you or delay you or stop you, or ultimately turn you into a shapeshifter yourself, or a shapeshifter's puppet. From human and sovereign adult to shapeshifting puppet. That is a journey that I think lots of us have experienced. And it is a journey. It's a journey from knowing reality to mistrusting everything. There is a journey there. A journey from trust to mistrust. A journey from certainty to uncertainty. There is that journey. So if we're going from one point to another, we're in the realms of liminal space. I have been exploring liminal space recently. You would have seen a Liminality video go up, which I'll link below. But I suddenly thought, this emotional confusion when shapeshifters get around us, that is a liminal journey too. It's always a journey, whether it's a journey of you losing yourself and then finding yourself again and fighting your way out, which is a journey I know well, or whether it's a journey of standing firm in who you are and trying to work out who the other person truly is as their intent shifts. You're still on a journey of discovery. So I thought, wow, this is a journey. This is from point A to point B. So we're kind of in a holding space as we get to grips with what is real again. The confusion brought about by shapeshifters will send us onto a journey into liminality. Of course, on our witchcraft path, we are dealing a lot of the time with journeys into the liminal, and we do meet various shapeshifters on this path. But there are many shapeshifters within mythologies, within pantheons, within folklore, within gods, goddesses and deities. We meet them all the time, and we choose to work with them often. I work with the Morrigan mainly. She is a shapeshifter, shapeshifting into animals, as many gods and goddesses are often prone to. This is some artwork that I regularly do in honour of the Morrigan and my other Celtic deities that I work with. That's why I use the Crow Tarot to commune with her, and the White Horse was also a gift and sign that I was given from the Morrigan in the underworld. And I've had hundreds of crows fly down for me to dance to as I left my final divorce hearing in court. I've had crows attack me in my car as the Morrigan spent quite some time furious with me. The Morrigan shapeshifts into various animals for me in my real witchcraft reality of day-to-day life. She's also afforded me opportunities to shapeshift as well, as I've gone on some really tricky journeys hand in hand with my deity. I think as a witch, spending time around any form of shapeshifting, it's the liminal journey in which you too can shapeshift. Here are some other art examples of what I mean. The Morrigan really carried me at times when I was completely broken during a time of being scapegoated and smear campaigned by family and ex-husbands, and at times it was only the Morrigan lifting me up and carrying me. This is an art piece that I did depicting that. I shapeshifted into a broken state, and the idea of crows around me picked me up. In a way, I'd shapeshifted from one emotional state to the other, and the Morrigan came to me in a shapeshifted form to literally pull me out of the deep dark crevasse that my soul had fallen down. There are times looking back that I don't know how I would have done that journey that I was thrown onto by real life shapeshifters in my life not being who they truly were. How would I have survived it? At times the Morrigan turned me into a warrior woman. She placed her armour onto me, gave me her sword, and demanded I fight back, to shapeshift from people pleaser to warrior like herself, a soldier worthy of working with the Morrigan. Here you can see I've got armour with a crow's helmet and black crow feathers. Why was I fighting? For my children. You can see I'm holding a deity goblet with mother's milk dropping into it. That was my why. The Morrigan and shapeshifting was my how. This is real life stuff to do with shapeshifters and journeys and battling against emotional and state forming shapeshifters who are sent to throw us off our path, to cause us to be confused. This is what walking out of confusion as a witch looked like for me. I went to my art studio to make sense of the liminal space I was in and what the Morrigan was asking me to do. This is my witchcraft practice at its strongest. I think in our witchcraft practice to take some time to think about shapeshifting journeys and other shapeshifters around us that might be bringing ill intent into our lives and to confuse us and to stop us. It's really useful, and to view times when we've shapeshifted ourselves. Like I said, I think shapeshifting does send you onto a liminal journey. It's a place of change of an in-between, where you're either trying to go on a journey to work out something or to try and get your own state back under your control. The thing that made me think about shapeshifting for this video, it's actually the first day of Mab Graves's Drawlloween art challenge. It's a drawing challenge through October, and the very first prompt for Drawlloween is "If I Were a Shapeshifter." So it's that prompt that got me thinking about shapeshifters around me, liminal journeys, times when I've shapeshifted, and I will be sharing my drawing for this prompt later in the video. But it sent me back to other drawings that I'd done for the Morrigan, and also this drawing, which was from Inktober a few years ago. Now, for me, this is one of the most emotional pieces that I've ever done. You can see it's drawn onto a map, and I think if you've got old maps in your witchy stores, you can often tear up old maps for something that I call map magic. This is the piece that made me realise that, and I've done this since, and it is incredible to get an old map, tear it up, glue it out down and see what appears. Now, this drawing was done for a prompt called the Outpost. The Outpost is a place removed where you go to defend yourself or the things that you love, and it made me think about being turned into the black sheep of my family and being scapegoated and being pushed out of a family system for no fault of my own. And I thought, gosh, my family turned me into an outpost where I was removed, living somewhere on my own, different, somewhere remote, purely as a form of defense. I tried to think of how to draw that, and I just couldn't think of a way to draw the hurt and the emotions and the betrayal and the backstabbing that comes into that sort of journey, being turned into an outpost by your own family. So I just grabbed a map and thought, I will just do a drawing based on geographical areas, something here and something removed. I'll take all the emotion out of it. So I started gluing the map down this way, let the glue dry. When I returned to the piece and turned it the other way up, within the way I'd glued the map, there was this woman in despair, naked, vulnerable, on her knees, distraught. What I had wanted to draw was all there, and I am going to share now the poem that I wrote called The Outpost and the making of this piece, because I think this as well shows an emotional journey where you're transformed in your life by something, and that was a journey that transformed me, turned me into a shapeshifter, by the ill intent of other shapeshifters around me, pretending to be something that they actually aren't. I think this is a journey of a witch where she uses her resources to heal, to shapeshift back to yourself. So this is my journey into shapeshifting into an outpost. You turned me into an outpost, a secluded place far removed, set up alone, guarding from the surprise attacks you liked to throw. You turned me into an outpost. Excluded from the familiar, the known, thrown away, scapegoated, turned out. You turned me into an outpost. How to draw that? To depict that hurt, to show the shock of betrayal cut deep? I couldn't. How can you draw a destruction like that wrought by the hands of the ones you love most? You turned me into an outpost. So I simply ripped maps and stuck them down. Take out the heartbreak, the collapsing of worlds. Take out the hearts ripped apart and the tears. Take it all out and just start to glue. Location the focus, not hearts broken in two. But the magic of art, the spirits within, they had heard what I wanted to draw. They refused to back down and leave. They never had. They whispered, "Look," and then I saw. They'd drawn her for me, the outpost you made, or folded creases of despair, her hair. She was there. You turned me into an outpost. But the spirits of art came with me. I was never as alone as you wanted me to be. And together we made the outpost our home. So I think as a witch, to be aware of shape-shifting is so important, not only to put protection magic in place when you can feel somebody is taking you on a journey, dragging you into the liminal to do damage. I often think back to that drawing of the outpost and think, if I'd already been walking in my witchcraft practice, would those people have been able to have done that to me? I think not, but my witchcraft pulled me out of it. So to be aware of the ills of shape-shifting and the trickery within it, and the way that it can force you to change state or emotion, but then also to harness the power of shape-shifting that we find in different pantheons, and they cross all pantheons. The Morrigan is the Celtic pantheon, which I work with, but you see it and the actual physical shape-shifting of the gods throughout every pantheon. In the Greek pantheon, you've got Zeus that often changes shape. You've got the Japanese Kitsune, who I actually drew in another gigantic Drawlloween piece. So my gosh, I can't even, let me move back. So this is an absolutely gigantic ink drawing that I did for one Drawlloween. You can see there's all sorts of mythological creatures, many of them shape-shifting, and then up here you can see by the trees Kitsune, who is the 10-tailed fox, also appears as a beautiful girl, can appear as a beautiful woman or an old man, all with the intent of either giving advice or tricking or misleading and confusing humans. So they appear everywhere, and I think they are worth knowing about if you are on a witchcraft journey. So shape-shifting can definitely be either like emotional shape-shifting, which we encounter, people trying to manipulate by state shifting or changing like the goalposts of where they're trying to make you walk, or it can be like literal physical shape-shifting like our gods and goddesses and deity do. One of my favourite shapeshifters in fiction has got to be in the Lord of the Rings books and The Hobbit. We've got Smeagol becoming Gollum. You've got that battle of his inner state, which sometimes transforms the way he looks as well. That is a version of shape-shifting, I think, where real life events push you onto a journey. In fact, I think the story of Smeagol battling with Gollum and those two inner beings in one person on that journey with the Ring of Power, that's a journey that I think really does link shape-shifting as an actual journey. It confirms it for me that it is a journey from point A to point B. Gollum really is in a victim state of shape-shifting. He was forced into that journey by the Ring of Power, and we watch in those storylines as well the protagonist, our hero Frodo, also being pushed onto the beginnings of the same journey, the same state transformation that Gollum suffered by the power of something else coming in. We see Frodo embark on that journey, and we watch the shape-shifting begin. We see his character change, his physical appearance change. We see his outlook on the world and his trust for others all begin to change. It is a very visceral way of watching how we need to protect ourselves from shape-shifting in our own reality. We watch Frodo and we can put ourselves in that position, and we can really feel for the effects that shape-shifting can bring about. And I think the story of Frodo not only shows us that it is a journey, shape-shifting can throw you on a journey, but it also makes it very clear that anybody can be coerced into shape-shifting, even the hero of the story, you and me, in our own stories. Shape-shifting can affect anyone. I think that's why it gets so confusing. It literally can be anybody. It can be Frodo, it can be Gollum, it can be you, it can be me. It can be the hero, it can be the villain. When intent is shrouded, it can push anybody into the liminal on a journey of shape-shifting. There is a warning there to not go unless you want to. I think if we are being pushed onto a journey where we're just trying to figure out what the hell is going on, that is a shape-shifting journey. I think within that, the message is to hold on tightly to yourself, to know your moral compass, to know your lines of no's and yeses, to have it already imprinted in your boundaries that you are separate to other people, what you will, what you won't accept. I think that is all protection for somebody being pushed into a journey to try and decipher what the hell is happening. So, shape-shifting, liminal journeys. There is one journey I haven't mentioned yet, which has been a key journey that has had control of me over my entire life, and it is a journey that I had an aha moment with when I was making notes on what liminality can be. So in this little book, as part of my grimoire, which I've already shared before in my last video on liminality, I talked about the liminal spaces as an in-between, of a place of transformation from one place to another, and I began to put down all of the places where the liminal could be found, like physical spaces, like hallways, or any space that no longer performs its intended function. But I also thought beyond these physical spaces about emotional liminal spaces and states. This is a page about shape-shifting. So the times in our life when we shapeshift, we become something different. We're stuck on a journey from one state to another, or one emotional state to another. They're liminal mental spaces and states, and these are often found in transitional moments that give a sense of a new identity or role. So you can see on this page I've got things like divorce. That takes you from like a married state to a divorced state, and boy does that do a number on your emotions. Like job losses are liminal states, relocating or house moves. They're all like in between moments where you're not settled yet. You lose a sense of who you are, and you're in the process of making yourself something else. Like just breakups, it doesn't have to be a divorce. Like breaks or sabbatical years in studying, they're liminal spaces. There's things like trance states in our witchcraft or creativity. I think sitting down to create something kind of puts you in a sort of meditative channeling liminal state. So drawing for me is one of those states. Death of a loved one, grief, that is definitely a time where life stops. I know for me, when Tilly was diagnosed, that those early days of my daughter's diagnosis, it's like time stopped. That was definitely a readjustment. Like things like graduations, when you finish studying and you're in that what now moment, illnesses, if you on your health suddenly is gone and you're just battling trying to regain health, that is definitely a liminal space. Decision making, when you're facilitating between two ideas, until you make the decision, you're in a liminal space. I think we've all had moments like that where we really have kind of had the world stop around us because we just can't make up our mind about something, and the relief of when you finally decide on a decision and go with it, and you feel the liminal lifting off you. So dream and waking spaces are liminal. Like being lost, if you're physically lost somewhere, it's like that panic of trying to, say, find your way out of a wood. So meditations or time transitions between like child, teenager, adult. Drugs can put you in liminal states. Hunger as well, exhaustion, pregnancy, so going from not a mother to a mother, all of that. Home construction, trauma, if you're a student studying, that's a liminal space. Grief, puberty, menopause, health changes, all of these liminal spaces. And you will notice that I haven't talked about this one yet, dieting. This is the state that I haven't talked about, and if anything was a shape-shifting journey, dieting is, because we're literally changing our shape or attempting to change our shape. It is a journey where we're always in a state of becoming. We're either trying to become bigger or we're trying to become smaller. It is definitely an in-between state, a state of not being whole yet. It's a state of wanting to be something else. It is a journey into the liminal. So I am going to talk a little bit about this. So trigger warning, if you don't want to hit any talks about dieting or exercise programs or weight, then for the next few minutes, and the piece that I draw, it is about this liminal journey, but it is talking about it with an empowered sense of standing strong in your witchhood. So I'll let you decide whether you want to listen to the next bit. So I want to share this from an empowered point of view, and a point of view of spending time to understand why this dieting journey has been a liminal space that I've been lost in for most of my life, but then to take back responsibility for that. It is an empowered chat about dieting as liminal, or any sort of physical desire to transform the way I look, which isn't inherently bad. So we'll start with that. So my history with state changing my body is long and very complex. I was the fattest kid in my primary school. I was horrendously bullied as a kid. As a little kid under 10, I had to have clothes made for me. I was that big. Going into secondary school in my teenage years, I was also bullied for being the fat kid. There were moments of dieting where I got smaller, but it was always a constant battle. Going into adulthood, I yo-yoed between binge eating and anorexia. I have spent years at a much higher weight. I've spent years chronically ill with anorexia at 6 stone and under. So to say that my relationship with this liminal space, the call of food, and the lack of being able to self-nurture myself with food is an understatement. This is a space that I know well. I spent years in therapy. I spent years with sponsors going to OA for it as well, which is Overeaters Anonymous. I've spent time being supported by doctors for being underweight. It is something that I know very well. So when all these shape-shifting ideas came up, and I realised that the in-between journey of dieting is liminal space, I wanted to know what pulled me into that. it started so young. I had to go back to early years. And I think taking responsibility for that as a scared kid with a narcissistic mother whose only goal in life was to keep her happy, to never say no to her, and to constantly be in a state of giving my power away, that's what I did. But there's no blame there, because I was a little kid, and little kids don't have a lot of power if the adults around them don't have their best intent. As a 5-year-old, it's very hard to own your nose when you feel terrorized and afraid. I remember once in a summer holiday, which I've spoken about before, of going to stay with my auntie, my dad's sister, for about 10 days, and it was wonderful. She was this beautiful, sort of glamorous woman with a wardrobe of vintage clothes. She would feed me beautifully. She took me running around parks every day, and I returned home 10 days later, a smaller version of myself, very happy, feeling light within myself. And my mother was furious. She stood over me on the first meal back home and spooned food onto my plate until it was a mountain and demanded I eat it. She yelled, saying, "I can see what's going on here. This is never happening again. Eat it." And she kept spooning food on. So there is no confusion really to where I was pushed into this liminal space. It was a remembering of that moment, of her standing over me, literally force feeding me, that came back to me years later in therapy and left me sobbing. And it was for a therapist then to call that what it was. And that was when the veil dropped and I began to go no contact with my mother. But it was really hard to face up to the fact that that's what it was. And then I realised that as an adult, the emotion around hunger and food had merged with fear. I still, even to this day, whenever I feel hungry, I feel afraid. It's fear. There is no pulling those two emotions apart for me. I always feel like I'm going to be in serious trouble if I even feel the start of hunger. It's not a great leap then to realise why I struggle with binge eating. But even with all of that therapy and back knowledge and understanding, it's still hard to place blame on those that you love the most and you feel should love you. It was only when my kids came into the mix and I viewed it through a mother's eyes that I began to see how horrific it all was. And then one day when I was talking to my mother about how beautiful my girls are and how I just know like the boys are going to be around the house because the girls are so beautiful, and what I might feel like when they all start dating and growing up, my mother's advice was to do the same to my daughters as she did to me. When I asked for clarification about what she meant, she actually said to my face, just feed them, just keep feeding them loads of food, make them eat and eat and eat, and they'll soon get so fat and horrible looking that nobody will be interested in them and you can have them all to yourself. That's what I did to you. It worked with you. And there is no denying the truth of the matter when it comes from the horse's mouth herself. It is at that point that I began to break all contact and then become the villain of the family. Go figure. And it is really painful for the veil to drop, and for years after that I learnt to self-nurture and to kind of get my sense of self around food in order. And I had over a decade where I had no issues at all. I was healthy, I was fit, and food stopped being the demon voice of my mother in the cupboard. However, when I cut ties completely and went no contact totally, it came rushing back in. I think there were doorways open in the liminal, and the black threads of that came and grabbed me, and I've spent the last 4 years battling it, and I still do. So there is something in the liminal that needs cord cutting for me. There is something that is pulling me in to not be able to continue self-nurturing consistently. I currently am on the top end of the weight that I've ever been in life, and it's miserable and I hate it, and I just want to feel healthy and light and to be able to run again. That's my goal. So it's positive because I think now I understand that there is a liminal journey that I've stayed in and that I got pulled back into. I have the power now to mentally cut cords. I think this is a problem on the liminal rather than in physical reality. I think when you hear people say, I just don't know why I can't stop eating, it is something mental going on in the liminal at a spiritual level. I think all the parts of me that dropped off to keep my mum happy are fighting back in the liminal, which is why I can't view myself as a whole sovereign person at a bigger weight. I've realized that I am on hold thinking I must become myself again. I think the trick here is to view myself as a whole sovereign person at whatever shape I am, at whatever stage of the journey I am, to call all of that power back to me. None of my power now is to people please anybody, even hiding in the shadows of the liminal. I want all those pieces back with me. Every single piece of me, from tiny to huge, is going to learn how to self-nurture. And with that in mind, that's the drawing that I wanted to create for the prompt, If I Were a Shapeshifter. I am a shapeshifter, but this journey is a new one with power. Oh my gosh, so this is the drawing that I decided to do. I own a collection of Russian dolls, and I suddenly thought about how beautiful every single one of the dolls is. It doesn't matter what size it is, whether it's the biggest one or the tiniest one that you open last. And I thought that's how we need to view ourselves. We need to view ourselves, every part of ourselves on the journey, whatever journey it is through the liminal, whether it's weight or whether it's skill acquisition, to love ourselves like these dolls, whether you're a beginner or at the end of your journey and you've nearly reached your goal, whether you've failed your goal and you're looping back. There are loads of different journeys that we take through the liminal where we're trying to shapeshift, change ourselves in some way, whether that be physical appearance or skills. And we just need to just claim every part as us and every part as equally valid. I think that's soul retrieval again, isn't it? Making sure we're not shaving any bits of ourselves off and handing them over to others who demand we should be something else, or they will only love us if. For us to love every single part of ourselves, whether you're a size 30 or whether you're a size 6, it doesn't matter. Soul retrieval, claim every one of those yous on the journey as something amazing and valid. The second thing it naturally leads into is self-love and self-compassion for yourself on the journey. Really love yourself and give yourself affirmations of how brilliant you are and how hard you're trying. A self-love journey is part of this as well. You need to claim your wins and let them soak into your system. Even if you're miles away from your goal, claim your wins and let them become a part of who you are. And in the losses, give yourself compassion. We can cord cut as well like a warrior. Within this liminal space, there are shadowy areas. We can see it here in the journey. You need to cord cut like a warrior. Anything that might be in that darkness trying to grab you back in, negative voices, other voices of other people that are in your head. All the times my mum said, I love you because you're the one I can feed. I'm cutting that completely out. I can feel the tendrils of that grabbing me in the liminal. So use your witchcraft cord cut or protection magic. Get that protection magic in place around you as your own being with boundaries. Mirror spells as well. Bounce that crap back at them. Bounce it back. Turn food into sacred food as well. That's what I'm trying to do now. Sacred food as a nourishing self-love spell. We can bring our witchcraft into this. We can also tie a rope around ourselves in our imagination for this journey. A rope that means we won't get pulled off the path. That rope, I think, has got our deal breakers on, what we will, what we won't accept as behaviour towards ourselves from others, what we will and we won't accept from behaviour towards ourselves by ourselves. The breaking of habits is tough. It takes patience. If life is trying to pull you off the path that you've set for yourself, to have an imaginary rope, a magical rope around yourself, keeping you on the straight and narrow, is an amazing thing. For me, it's an essential health journey now. For you, it might have nothing to do with this sort of topic, but there might be a shape-shifting journey that is pulling you into the liminal. If you are this person about to step into that journey, make sure you have those things in place. I think as witches, we have a lot of skills in place to protect ourselves on a journey and to understand why we even need to take that journey, to cord cut away from the events and people that pushed us into needing to make this journey. It's all liminal journeys around that idea of shape-shifting, but I think the answer is standing strong in your own power, which for me is what witchcraft allows me to do. It might be that you make a herbal tincture to take, or work with a flower essence, that whenever you feel like you are falling into the dangers of this type of journey, that it pulls you back to yourself. It might be that you enchant jewellery that you can look at and listen to it jangling as you go through your day, that reminds you. There's so much sympathetic magic as well that we can set up to remind us that we are in charge of this journey and we can find the exit that we desire. So for me, it was really interesting to draw this picture and to go through a process of analysing what shape-shifting means for me, where it fits into my witchcraft and how it helps me to reclaim power. It is a journey like this girl in the image. I'm only just starting, but it is a journey that for the first time I'm starting it from a place of power, not from a place of feeling broken or inadequate or sad. And I think that is really something. That is the mental work that I've been doing around this topic. So I hope that's been interesting, guys. I hope that for whatever journey or shape-shifting elements in your life you have going on, that's giving you something to ponder. And thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.